Mangalcharam sa Chidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam
Mangalcharam sa Chidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam
Jasoda Bhiyolukhala Dhavomanam Paramrishtamatan Tato Drutta Gopya
Jasoda Bhiyolukhala Dhavomanam Paramrishtamatan Tato Drutta Gopya
Namami Sharam Sa Chidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam Rudantam Muhurnetram Jugmam Mrijantam Karam Bhoja Jugmena Shatanka Netram
Rudantam Muhurnetram Jugmam Mrijantam Karam Bhoja Jugmena Shatanka Netram
Muhushashokam Potri Rekhanko Kantra Sthita Graiva Damodaram Bhakti Badham
Muhushashokam Potri Rekhanko Kantra Sthita Graiva Damodaram Bhakti Badham
Namami Sharam Sa Chidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam Iti Driksha Lila Bhirananda Kunde Shabhosang Nimajjantam Akhapayantam Tadiyeshitageshu bhaktoirjitatam Puna prematastam shatabritti vande
Tadiyeshitageshu bhaktoirjitatam Puna prematastam shatabritti vande
Namami Sharam Sa Chidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam Barang Deva Mokshang Na Mokshavadhing Va Nachannam Drine Aham Varishadapiha Idante Gopurnatha Gopala Bala Shadame Mana Shavirastam Kimanai
Idante Gopurnatha Gopala Bala Shadame Mana Shavirastam Kimanai
Namami Sharam Sa Chidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam Idante Mukham Bojam Attanta Nilai Britam Kuntalai Snigdha Raktaischa Gopya
Idante Mukham Bojam Attanta Nilai Britam Kuntalai Snigdha Raktaischa Gopya
Muhushchumbitam Bimba Raktadharam Me Manasya Virastam Alam Lakshalabhai
Muhushchumbitam Bimba Raktadharam Me
Namami Saramsa Chidanandarupa Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhajamana Namo Devo Damodaraya Ananta Vishnu Proshida Prabhu Dukho Jalabhimagna
Namo Devo Damodara Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prabhu Dukha Jalabhimana
Kripa Drishti Vrishtapi Dinam Vatanu Grihane Shamamagga Medhakshi Drisha
Vipavishti Vishati Dinam Bhatano Vihane Samamukha Medhakshi Disha
Namami Sharamsa Chidananda Rupa Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhajamana Kuberatmajau Baddha Murtaiva Jadvat Tayamachito Bhakti Bhajo Krito Cha
Vyatmajao Vada Mutaiva Jadva Tayamchito Bhakti Bhajo Krito Cha
তথা প্রেম ভক্তি সকাং মে প্রযচ্ছ নমক্ষে গ্রহ মেস্তি দামোদরে
Tata Prema Bhakti Sharange Prajacha Namaste Brahmanisti Damodareha
নমঃ সারাম সা চিদানন্দ রূপা লসৎ কুণ্ডলম গোকুলে ভজমানা नमस्ते स्तुदामने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने तदीयोदरायथ विश्वस्य धाम्ने
Namaste Sudhamne Suradipti Dhamne Tadyadarayatha Vishwasadhamne
नमो राधिकाय तदीय प्रियाय नमो अनंत लीलाय देवाय तुभ्याम्
Namo Radhikaya Tadyapriyaya Namo Andalilaya Devaya Tubham
नमामि शारांसा चिदानंद रूपा लसत् कुंडलं गोकुले भजमाना नमामि शारांसा चिदानंद रूपा लसत् कुंडलं गोकुले भजमाना नमामि शारांसा चिदानंद रूपा लसत् कुंडलं गोकुले भजमाना
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees to our Srimad Bhagavatam series. Today we're covering Canto 1, Chapter 7, verses 8 to 11, the son of Drona punished. Let us cover the Mangalcharam Prayers. Om Jnanatimi Vandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Prem Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedika Satvala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaitrit Prada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O light breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna, who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsha Shivaryate Sarvara Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, offer my respectful obeisance unto you. By reading you one attains transcendental bliss, for your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are incarnation of the Lord Krishna. Madeka Bandhu Mat Sangim Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Man Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Asadu Sadhu Tadai Natti Nichocha Taraka Anam Chakada Chinmam Premna Ritkatyo Spuram. O Srimad Bhagavatam, who give saintly to the unsaintly, who uplift the very fallen, please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest in my heart and my throat, accompany pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadyasya yatonvayaditarata charte subhigna swarat tene brahma hidayadi kavaye muyanti yatsuraya tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra tisargo mrisha damna swena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primary cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in transcendental abode, which is free from the illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayanopaisha Sabya Kalavasmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagi Upadarta. O learned one in this iron age of Kali, many but short lives, they are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayam Namaskritya Narachevam Narotamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Nojayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance to the personality of God and Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savaipum soparo dharmo yato bhaktirodokshajay ahitukya pratyataya yatma suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanities, that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted, completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatya Savairagyam Jnanam Yet Ahertikam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God as Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causes of knowledge and detachment from the world. Vadanti tat tat pravidas tattvam yach gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. Shru Shru Shrosha Dhananandasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice point sages, by serving those devotees are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shrandutam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ritantastoya Patrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nastapasha Badreshu Nitam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutam Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtiki. By regular attendance in a class on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise, the transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We continue Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So let us hear any feedback that you could remember, even though we skipped 1 week. Let's see if you can remember anything we covered from verses 1 to 7 in chapter 7, Canto 1. What caught your attention, what you found interesting, what you took to heart, what you want to remember. Bafana Prabhu says, present condition state. Present condition state influenced by external energy. Illusory energy takes initiative. The Lord is aloof. The Lord ... So our present condition state is influenced by the material nature. Yes. And the Lord is aloof. He does not interfere with our playground and with our desire to play. Like a father. Sometimes the father will tell the child, this is not good for you. And the child doesn't listen. So the father lets him, okay, he has to learn. Growing pains. So the Lord also, He allows the living entity to have his playground, this material world, and think he's the controller, the doer. He's trying to enjoy, trying to extract the taste, happiness from this material world, and ultimately dead end. It's going to come to a dead end. So the Lord, He knows this and is trying to encourage us, coerce us, but the living entities are very stubborn. So when we turn towards Krishna, that is perfection. That is the beginning of real life. Hemavati Radhika says, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 4, 124. The love of Radha is the Lord's teacher, and her love makes him dance, novel dances. So beautiful this is. Also, be dependent on the Lord's causeless mercy, solely and wholly. Yes, wonderful. Krishna consciousness is the practice of trying to achieve this, to depend totally, completely on the causeless mercy of the Lord. This is the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Nalini Kantaprabhu says, make our homes an ashram, and we should go door to door to spread the mercy, just like Lord Nityananda, following the footsteps. This is what pleases the Lord. Liberating and perfecting ourselves, that's good, great. But helping others return back to the shelter of Krishna, this is greater. Therefore, we can appreciate the relationship Prabhupada and Krishna has. Prabhupada is, Prabhupada's desire was so that the whole planet, the whole universe become Krishna conscious. This was Prabhupada's outstanding, magnanimous heart. And even Prabhupada, is not, even though Prabhupada is not physically present, he's there through his Vani, through his Murti form, through his followers. He's still extending his mercy and helping people become Krishna conscious. So it's astounding. Madhachana Siddhi says, whatever Srila Vyasadeva will share with us in Bhagavatam is the whole truth. Krishna is a student in front of Srimati Radharani's love. The truth is in our hands, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes people get some knowledge, and that knowledge changes. This knowledge does not change, and therefore it gives great security, gives great solace, shelter, confidence, conviction. Because people in the material, the material world described like a drop of water tottering on a leaf, on a lotus leaf, which is very slippery, immediately can fall. So this is our nature in the material world, very unsettling, very insecure. It's like having an earthquake at every moment. But when we take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the absolute truth, that becomes great security. We begin to experience the eternality, the nature of our true self, which is eternality. And then the substance when we connect with devotional service. Shyamananda Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Srila Vyasadeva and Srila Prabhupada did the heavy lifting for all of us. We just have to read and put into practice, most definitely. Yes. They did so much of the heavy lifting. Imagine if we had to, try to figure out, okay, where do I find the truth? Let me start journeying to all the parts of the world, ultimately understanding, okay, no part of the world has, the knowledge. Maybe it's in the Himalayas somewhere. Let me go to all the, mountain ranges. Let me traverse the vast range of the Himalayan mountains and find the sages that will give me the truth. And then one after another, trying, different yogis, different saints, different munis, with the time that it will take, the effort it will take, the disappointments that we would encounter. All this is solved in one, or all this is solved very simply, very quickly, very effectively by Srila Prabhupada and Vyasadeva. They've given us the truth in the form of books. And now we have it even in the form, practically in our hand. Yeah. Anytime, any moment, wherever we go, we have the truth. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Yes. So they've done all they have left. Now all we have to do is really, absorb our consciousness, associate with these, with the words, with Srimad Bhagavatam, with Prabhupada, his Bhaktivedanta purports, with all the sadhus in the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the souls of Lord Chaitanya, all the souls of Lord Krishna, all his wonderful devotees. Just like right now, we are associating with Srila Vyasadeva. Right now, we are associating with Sukadeva Goswami. We are associating with Sutta Goswami. We are associating with the sages of Naimisharanya. It's inconceivable how through such a powerful, simple medium, we're able to penetrate the dimensions of spiritual reality and associate with these great personalities. It's like back to the future. Talk about going in the future, going in the back, time travel. So we are actually associating directly with these personalities through transcendental sound vibration. And we just have to be sincere. We just have to really take seriously to Krishna consciousness and benefit. Prabhupada said it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. Srila Prabhupada gave the whole program, the whole package of devotional service, all sides sorted, social, political, economical, everything. Yes. Rasaraj Prabhu says, ashram is a place where spiritual life is topmost. We should transform our homes into a temple or an ashram. Wonderful. Mala says, Hare Krishna, the influence of the illusory energy is necessary for reformation of the conditioned souls, and devotional service is the remedial process for the conditioned souls. Afana Prabhu says, the Lord does not want the living entities to be illusioned by external energy. External energy is aware of this fact, but still accept this thankless task of keeping forgotten soul under illusion by a bewildering influence. Astonishing also is that the Lord descends from his kingdom to the kingdom of illusory energy. What an expression. Yeah, what an expression of kindness, of mercy. It shows Krishna is interested in us. Last lecture left me with an impression of us being materially diseased. One can imagine someone with AIDS, cancer, last stage material disease is our life. Is like that. We therefore require saintly people's words to relieve us from this materially diseased state. And when we, until we don't get that, our sincerity and our conviction to practice Krishna consciousness will never be. That is why Prabhupada again and 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 again, he's stressing this point. That when we understand I'm diseased, I'm spiritually diseased, and here's the medication. It's like somebody is sick, and you tell them you need to go to a doctor. Yeah. No, you're sick, you need to go. Yeah. But when they really get it, I really now need help. I'm diseased, I need help. Then they seek shelter. Seek help. So like that, yes, we really have to understand our condition. Our situations, material world is not wonderful. And when you look in the mirror, oh, how wonderful, such a beautiful person. No, when you look in the mirror, you have to see, oh, just see, diseased. Imagine, this body with oil, it's boils and pus and insects on it, just like how Sanat Goswami had his body that was diseased. So when we look in the mirror, we should see like that. It's diseased with all these impurities of lust, anger, greed, jealousy, envy, madness. These are like insects and spiders and worms and cockroaches all crawling over our body, eating. That's what we should see, the diseased, materially diseased condition. And the remedy is to reveal, to revive our true nature, which is beautiful, which is effulgent. Prabhupada says the soul is like millions of suns, brilliant, beautiful. Then we engage, we revive that in relation to Krishna, who's also beautiful. So that's real beauty. I realize that we are the Lord over, and he is saddened by the lost lover, by the forgetfulness and entanglement of material disease. Yes, Shama, this Srimad Bhagavatam is complete and perfect. But alas, to realize the glories of the Supreme Lord, you have to know the glories of the Supreme Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us this vast knowledge, and the devotee's journey is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, will help us to reach the goal if we follow these examples. So wonderful feedback and realization, very succinct, very to the point, and very clear. Bhafana Prabhu says, Srila Prabhupada's confidence and powerful statements that peace conference won't change the situation of isms and divisions, and peace in the society will prevail. Wow, Prabhupada, thank you. Yes, Prabhupada was, practically totally convinced. That's why Srila Prabhupada would not, if somebody asks a question, he would answer without even thinking, because it's total realization. Now, we may not have that realization, but we have full confidence in Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we know, even though we have not gone through it, we know from Srila Prabhupada's realization that yes, no amount of peace conference and getting together and national this and national that, and nope, nothing will work. The solution is Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to spread the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it starts with us. It starts with our spreading it within ourselves, within our families, and then to the world. Shama says, Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned souls with the aim of life. Yes, Bafana Prabhu says, I'm saying we are the lovers to the Lord, and He is lamenting the lost. He's looking over us, His lover. Yes, we are all this movement. One devotee said, Krishna consciousness is basically a movement of love. And even the philosophy is basically a philosophy of love. It's to revive our loving relationship with Krishna. Thank you very much for all your feedback. Let us continue. So we are now hearing, we've heard, Srila Vyasadeva following the instructions of Narad Muni. Vyasadeva was despondent, and the solution to his despondency was Srimad Bhagavatam. The instructions that the Narad Muni gave him, he applied the process of bhakti, went into trance. He was given, the truth was revealed to Srila Vyasadeva. That truth that was revealed to Srila Vyasadeva on a transcendental plane is beyond comprehension, is beyond the words of this material world. It cannot be understood completely on the material plane. But for the benefit of all living beings, Srila Vyasadeva, under the instruction of Narad Muni, documented, presented what he saw in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. The truth that was revealed to him, he presented that in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is a manifestation of Srila Vyasadeva's samadhi trance, revelation of the truth coming to us in the form of a book, Grantha Bhagavat, the form of a book. And even though material words cannot describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead completely, we can at least get a glimpse of that truth. So whatever is given to us in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, is the proper dosage of the medicine that we require for purifying our lives. And when we accept this medication, apply it into our life, and it starts to heal our heart, what will happen is exactly what Srila Vyasadeva was given in form of revelation. That same revelation we will receive ultimately in our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is wonderful. And we also mentioned that it's about understanding our shortcomings. It's about recognizing that we are diseased. If I am diseased, just like if a doctor, I may be a medical practitioner, I may be a doctor, but when I get sick, I can't treat myself. I also need to go to another doctor. Similarly, because I am diseased, I need to go to a physician. And when we understand that I'm diseased, I need to go to the physician, Srila Prabhupada, I need to take the medication. That means I understand that on my own, I cannot perfect my life. I cannot become spiritually healthy. I need mercy. I need grace. The more we understand that, the more we understand that we're dependent on the mercy of Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, then we are able to effectively advance on this path, not by our own efforts, but really on the fuel of grace. So there was an interesting story, anecdote. One faithful servant of the Lord, he would go regularly to the church, and he would put his donation, $1, $1 every day. He would go, every week he would go regularly, diligently, putting, understanding that, yes, my Lord, this is all yours. I'm giving you in sacrifice, but really I cannot sacrifice anything. It all belongs to you. And one fine Sunday morning, one, person was there in the village. He came a little proud, of his wealth, and he thought, okay, today I'll give $5. So he took out $5 and he put $5 in the donation box, thinking that he has done some great service. He was doing a favor to God. And then he walked out and thinking that, I'm better than that fellow. He's giving $1. I'm giving $5 at a time. I'm better. So he walked out and he met an accident and died. So it so happened that he ended up at the gates of heaven, kingdom of God. Came at the doors, and the representatives of Giant Vijay, they stopped him. Sorry, sir, I think you at the wrong entrance. No, I gave $5, and I gave $5 and I'm meant to have entrance. So they looked at a database and they found, nope, sorry, sir, your name is not here. We'll have to, escalate this matter to God. So yeah, go ask God, you'll see. He'll tell you, I belong here in the kingdom of God. So then they tell the Lord, my Lord, this person who gave $5 is here. The Lord said, give him back his $5 and tell him go to hell. So that's the point, that really it's not about our efforts. What you give, what you do, I gave my time, I did this, I distributed so many books, I did so many festivals, I made so many devotees. No, it's not about what you do, because really you don't do anything. You don't have the power. But when you understand that it is by divine grace, that is by the Lord's potencies and power and the devotee's mercy, that one is able to render service, and that attitude is favorable for us to walk on this path of bhakti. So we are now covering verses 9 to 11. Vyasadeva teaches Bhagavatam to Sukadeva Goswami. Verses 8 to 9, why did Sukadeva Goswami, who was already on the path of self-realization, study Bhagavatam? That's the question that the sages were curious about. And then we'll cover 10 to 11, even Atmarama's desire devotional service, example of Sukadeva Goswami. So text 8. Sasamitam bhagavatim kritvanu kramya chatmajam sukham adhyapayam asha nivriti nirtam muni. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. So the word anukramya, by correction and repetition. Srimad Bhagavatam was already compiled. When Srila Vyasadeva had given all the Vedas, then he had also given Srimad Bhagavatam. But that Srimad Bhagavatam was very brief. It wasn't comprehensive. And after his disappointment and getting guidance from Narad Muni, and then it's a scribe, he revised, he corrected and revised it. So he gave the Srimad Bhagavatam we currently now have, far more comprehensive, 18,000 verses. Because Narad Muni told him, you did not repeatedly and extensively glorify the Lord in the process of bhakti. So do this. And that is Srimad Bhagavatam. So he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he taught it to his own son, Sukadeva Goswami. But his son was already liberated. So this is the curiosity, this is the question that the sages were trying to understand. Why? How come? Yes, we understand Vyasadeva was disappointed and he got Srimad Bhagavatam, which then cured his disappointment. But Sukadeva Goswami, he was liberated. He was Brahman realized. So how come, Srimad Bhagavatam attracted him? Prabhupada in the purport says, Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Brahma Sutras compiled by the same author. This Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra is meant for those who are already engaged in self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam is so made that one becomes at once engaged in the path of self-realization simply by hearing the topics. So as soon as one begins to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, just that hearing process puts one on the path of self-realization. This is why it's glorified so extensively, because just by oral reception, just by giving, paying attention to it, very simple process, just by hearing. Yeah. And it doesn't cost anything to hear. And the effort is minimal. In fact, you don't even need to open your ears. Your ears are open 24 hours a day. Krishna designed like it, just like if you want to speak. If you want to speak, right, you have to open your mouth for you to speak. That's why some people say, don't open your mouth. So you have to still open it. There's some effort, there's some energy required to dissipate. I need energy to open my mouth. Srimad Bhagavatam, you don't need any energy to hear. Your ears are open. As soon as somebody speaks, it's going in. How glorious, how wonderful. And as soon as the Bhagavatam enters your ears, you are placed on the path of self-realization. You don't even know it. That which takes Bhavanam Janmanamante, that which takes millions and millions and millions of lifetimes to be on the path of spiritual life and practice that path, that is happening, becomes, Prabhupada says, one becomes at once engaged simply by hearing. On this path of self-realization, one becomes engaged. Although it is especially meant for Paramahamsas, or those who are totally engaged in self-realization, it works into the depths of the hearts of those who may be worldly men. So this Bhagavatam is for the Paramahamsas. It's for those who are beyond self-realization. They are perfected beings. The highest of the perfected beings, the Paramahamsas, swan-like devotees. It's meant for those. And those who are worldly minded, those who are, Prabhupada says, what is this worldly minded? Worldly men are all engaged in sense gratification. But even such men will find in this Vedic literature remedial measure for the material disease. So this Bhagavatam is really meant for the heart. It's meant to purify the disease in the heart. This disease of sense gratification, this condition that we have to enjoy, to lord over, to exploit the resources of material life. This Bhagavatam is for that disease. And everyone in this world is plagued by that disease. Therefore, this Bhagavatam is really the true solution. Sukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from the very beginning of his birth. And his father taught him Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's meant for the Paramahamsas. It can help those who are materially diseased, us. And Sukadeva Goswami was liberated. So how did Sukadeva Goswami benefit from Srimad Bhagavatam? That's the subject. Amongst mundane scholars, there is some diversity of opinion as to the date of compilation of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is, however, certain from the text of Bhagavatam that it was compiled before the disappearance of King Parikshit and after the departure of Krishna. When Maharaj Parikshit was ruling the world as the king of Bharatvarsh, he chastised the personality of Kali. According to revealed scriptures and astrological calculation, the age of Kali is in its 5,000th year. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5,000 years ago. Mahabharata was compiled before Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Puranas were compiled before Mahabharata. That is an estimation of the date of compilation of the different Vedic literatures. The synopsis of Srimad Bhagavatam was given before the detailed description under the instruction of Narada. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science for following the path of Nivritti Marg. The path of Pravritti Marg was condemned by Narada. That is the path. That path is the natural inclination of all conditioned souls. So the path of sense gratification, Pravritti Marg, that is condemned. The path of renunciation, Nivritti Marg, that is the path of Bhagavatam. The theme of Srimad Bhagavatam is the cure of the materialistic disease of the human being, or stopping completely the pangs of material existence. So that last sentence, very profound. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. If you are interested in curing the materialistic disease, then Srimad Bhagavatam is for you. Or if you want to completely, not partially, not little, not to some degree, completely stop the pangs, the suffering, the pain, the anxiety, the torture, the exploitation of material existence, Srimad Bhagavatam is the solution. To that degree, we want this. To that degree, we will associate with Srimad Bhagavatam. When one is completely convinced that, yes, I need to stop material existence. I need to stop this material body. I need to stop getting this material body, this engagement, this influence. Because why do I need it? I don't need this material body. This material body is really stopping me from enjoying real enjoyment. It's an artificial inconvenience to my enjoyment with Krishna. Unnecessary, anarata, unwanted. Therefore, I need to give it up. But you can't give it up just by committing suicide, just by killing. No. The way to dissolve this material body is to dissolve the false ego. And the way to dissolve the false ego is Srimad Bhagavatam. Understanding Krishna, understanding the process of devotional service, surrendering to that process, taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. And all that will happen simply through hearing. Now we can hear and will start having effect. But if I hear and understand and try to apply, try to expedite the process by application, it has greater power and efficiency. So yes, even if somebody does not do anything, simply hear, it'll have effect. But just like when you're going up an escalator, so you get onto the escalator and the escalator takes you up, right? So you don't do anything, you just stand on the escalator and the escalator takes you up. But if you want to go quicker, then you can also walk on the escalator. So the escalator is taking you up at a certain speed, and you are walking or you're running on the escalator, which means you're going faster to your destination. So like that, if we hear the Bhagavatam and really apply the knowledge that's given there in Prabhupada's purports in the verses of the Bhagavatam, then we really move closer and faster to our goal. Text 9. Shonako vacham savai nivriti nirrata sarvatro paksha komuni kasyava vratim etam atmarama samabhyashat. Sri Shonaka asked Sutta Goswami. Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo study of such a vast literature? So now Shonaka Rishi is asking a very important question, that Sukadev Goswami was already satisfied. Atmarama, this is the word, Atmarama, satisfied within. So he was completely satisfied. There was nothing he required. In fact, when he left, when he came out from the womb of his mother, he just left everything because he didn't want to get entangled. And he just went into the forest. He was liberated. He was Brahman realized. He was fully satisfied. There was nothing he needed. Atmarama. So if there was nothing that he needed, then why did he take so much trouble to study this vast literature, 18,000 verses? Because it would have meant that he would have come back to his father's ashram. He would have to have learned Sanskrit. He would have to go through the trouble of memorizing all these verses and study. So this was the curiosity that they wanted answered. Prabhupada says in the purport, for the people in general, the highest perfection of life is to cease from material activities and be fixed on the path of self-realization. Those who take pleasure in sense enjoyment, or those who are fixed in material bodily welfare work, are called karmis. Out of thousands and millions of such karmis, one may become an Atmarama by self-realization. So it's a very, very exalted platform. Atma means self, and Rama means to take pleasure. Everyone is searching after the highest pleasure. But the standard of pleasure of one may be different from the standard of another. Therefore, the standard of pleasure enjoyed by the karmis is different from that of the Atmaramas. The Atmaramas are completely indifferent to material enjoyment in every respect. Let me read that again. The Atmaramas are completely indifferent. Again, note the choice of words Prabhupada uses, not partially, not little, no, completely indifferent to material enjoyment in every respect. That means an Atmarama, he does not need anything that a karmi needs in this material world for pleasure. He does not need his toys. He does not need, any form of material pleasure that people strive for, that work so hard for, to get money to buy. Whether it's pleasure of the opposite sex, or whether it's different gadgets and tools and whatever it is in this material world, the Atmaramas don't need that. So then the question may follow, well, then where do they get their pleasure from? Srila Sukadeva Goswami had already attained that stage, and still he was attracted to undergo the trouble of study of the great Bhagavatam literature. This means that Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study even for the Atmaramas who have surpassed all the studies of Vedic knowledge. So if we look at happiness, Prabhupada is making the point that there are different standards for happiness. And here you'll see I've given you a number line. So there's material pleasure on the one side and there's spiritual pleasure on the other. Material pleasure means pleasure related to the senses. Spiritual pleasure means pleasure of Krishna. And then we have zero. So the Atmaramas, they are at zero. The Karmis, they are moving in the direction of negative. You get the Karmis, then you get the demons, which means they try to get happiness more and more on the sensual plane, on the plane of senses, trying to satisfy the senses and trying to exploit the resources of the material nature to satisfy the senses. And there's no limit to what degree you can exploit the resources. The challenge of material pleasure is you can go and exploit more and more and more in all different, in infinite variety of ways, of standards. The conclusion is dissatisfaction. Never satisfied. Because it's flickering. It's temporary. And because of that nature of the material pleasure, no amount of it can fully satisfy the soul. And that is why the transcendentalists, those who are in knowledge, the Gyanis, they understand this, that moving in this direction to material pleasure is the wrong direction. It'll lead more and more to frustration because you're never going to get happiness. So then they move in the opposite direction and they come to zero. So the Atmaramas, who are Brahman realized, that means they're not interested in material pleasure. They seek pleasure of Brahman. And in this Brahman state, Brahmabhuta state, they are now satisfied with pleasure that they derive within the self itself. Because the soul is made of Satchidananda, the soul is made of bliss. So they take pleasure in themselves. And when they take pleasure in themselves, with the spiritual energy, they are satisfied. And the Atmaramas stay in that state. Now, the Bhagavatam is taking us to a greater level. Anandam Buddhivardhanam, a level where that pleasure is ever increased. That means you're not just content, but now you are in the waves of greater bliss and ananda in relation to Krishna, loving relationship, where you serve the Lord for his pleasure. And by serving the Lord for his pleasure, you are getting greater and greater happiness. Just like when you give, you get a greater sense of contentment than if you take. So material life means a life of exploitation. Atmarama, or Brahman state, means a life of neutrality. No exploitation and no loving service. But when you start engaging on the path of bhakti, that means a life of extending yourself to give pleasure to Krishna. And that is where there is greater pleasure. So we're not interested in materialist, but we are interested in what happened to Sukadeva Goswami, because Sukadeva Goswami was Atmarama. And he took the effort to study Srimad Bhagavatam. He would only take the effort to study Srimad Bhagavatam if it was of a higher nature. If it was of a lower nature, he already gave that up. So why would he go to something which is lower? So that is, this is also revealing to us then the exalted position of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, Prabhupada says it is for the Paramahamsas. And the pleasure that's derived there is even greater. So what was in the Bhagavatam that propelled, that attracted even those who are self-satisfied? Text 10. Shri Sutta Uvacha Atmaramascha Munayo Nigranta Apyuprukramay Purvantya Haitukim Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Gunohari. This verse is called the Atmarama Verse. And we'll speak about the purport. Prabhupada gives a very extensive purport, and we'll explain why. Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Very beautiful. If what attracted the Atmaramas, itam buto guno hari, the transcendental qualities of Krishna. Krishna possesses transcendental qualities. These qualities are so attractive that they even attract the Atmaramas who are completely satisfied in the self. And it attracts them to engage, to render devotional service. It attracts them to serve Krishna. It attracts them to hear more about Krishna. It attracts them to give pleasure to Krishna. If that's the power of Krishna's transcendental qualities towards the Atmaramas who are completely satisfied, what to talk about those who are dissatisfied in this material world, who are struggling and suffering like in a desert? So if somebody is in a desert, scorching heat, suffering, days and days, naturally for them, water is what they want. But for somebody who is now totally quenched, their thirst is totally quenched, they're satisfied, they've got an ocean of water, what's going to attract them? It is the transcendental qualities of Krishna. So this is the Atmarama verse. Now, this Atmarama verse is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, in the discussion or the pastime of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'll just share a synopsis of that pastime, and then we'll read Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada is taking the conversation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and giving a synopsis in his purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling and he came to Jagannath Puri and he went into ecstasy. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was one of the prominent scholars living at that time. In fact, it is described that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was one of the most exalted and highest, and one of the highest scholars in Orissa. During the time when Sri Mahaprabhu was present, it was described just before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, Mithila, the place where Sita Devi appeared, that was the seat of learning. Everyone would go to Mithila for learning the Vedas, the Vedanta. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he wanted to make Bengal the seat. So he went to Mithila, and they didn't want to allow him to copy, the vast scriptures. So what he did was he went there, he memorized everything, and he came, and then he established the schools in Orissa, West Bengal, and that's how Navadvip also became the seat of learning during the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then at that time, all the people in India that wanted to become Vedantists, they want to learn the Vedas and the Vedanta Sutras, etc., they would travel to West Bengal. Now, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Orissa, to Jagannath Puri, and he fainted in ecstasy, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw this wonderful sannyasi exhibiting these ecstatic symptoms. He then brought him to his house and revived the Lord. And he saw this beautiful sannyasi. And he told this beautiful sannyasi, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that you are a sannyasi, you should study Vedanta. And the Lord, very humbly, he said, yeah, sure. And even though it was, trying to forget his name, maybe it's in the purport, the son-in-law, one of the relatives of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he told Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord. He's not just an ordinary sannyasi. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he said, no, he's a sannyasi. So he said, I'm going to teach you the Vedanta Sutras. And for 7 days, he began to share his commentary and speak. The Lord just sat for 7 days and just heard. Did not say a word, did not intervene, he just sat. On the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was wondering that, I wonder if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually understands what I'm saying, because he hasn't even said a word. He hasn't, told me whether he understands or don't understand. He didn't say a word. So he asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I've been speaking for 7 days and you haven't said a word. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, well, I understand the Vedanta Sutras, but what you are saying, I don't understand. You are giving your own concocted meaning. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was shocked. Nobody responded to him like that. He's like the scholar, and nobody's responded to him like that. So then this discussion ensued, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to explain more, and he said, he then asked, he obviously was very, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very, he was grateful for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's scholarship, and he wasn't very aggressive with him, but he was revealing the truth. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, okay, this Atmarama verse that is described here, that Sri Suda Goswami mentioned, he said, you can please share with me from your scholarship, because you vastly learned and people come to you for learning. So yes, you definitely vastly learned. I like to hear from you about this verse. So please reveal to me, what you understand by this verse. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, very, very happy. He took this verse, this Atmarama verse, and he began to give 9 different meanings to this verse. After hearing the 9 different meanings, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very pleased. He was very grateful and thankful. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to reveal his glory. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not touch the 9 different meanings that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya exhaustively elaborated. He gave 61 different meanings to this Atmarama verse. So here, for example, we have 1 meaning Prabhupada is giving us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave 9 different meanings, which means 9 different translations, you could say, to this verse. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave 61 different meanings, all unique and different, one after another. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was hearing 1 meaning after, you can imagine, right? He's the scholar. No one can beat him, which means from his perspective, these 9 meanings, that's it. Nobody can go beyond that. This is like the understanding of these verses. And now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu starts giving verse, understanding number 1. And he was shocked. Wow, how come I missed that? And then number 2, gee, this is another one. I didn't. That's amazing. 3, 4. Yeah. Naturally, to just give 1 would have blown Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. That how with all my scholarship, how come I missed that? This is astounding. Wow. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like he was on another level. Then he gives 2. Excuse me. Yes, you. Then he gives 3, then he gives 4, then he gives 5. 61. That was totally, completely enough to convinced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He totally surrendered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, I recognize you're not ordinary, you're not an ordinary person. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya began to compile 100 verses glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after that. So this is how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showered his compassion on Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, revealing his true personality, because he is the Supreme Personality of God. Now, here we have in total 69, 9 plus 60, so 70 different understanding of this verse. Like that, every single verse, every single word in Srimad Bhagavatam can be understood in unlimited ways. Why? Because it is Krishna, and Krishna is unlimited. That is why we can never say we've studied Bhagavatam. Even if we just take this verse, we could practically go on and on to infinity with Krishna revealing different truths of this verse from all angles. This also should reveal to us the power, the potency, and the extent of the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Krishna. So Prabhupada in the purport shares some of the meanings that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Now, we can take this further. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Sanatana Goswami, then Sanatana Goswami, he said, my Lord, I heard you had this meeting with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and you showed, your compassion on him and you revealed 61 different meanings. I like to hear some of those meanings. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami, no, I was just playing around. Playing around with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and I gave me 61 meanings. But I'll share with you some meanings. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Sanatana Goswami gave another 64. This is the depth of Krishna's qualities and glories. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this Atmarama slok very vividly before his chief devotee, Srila Sanatana Goswami. He points out 11 factors in the sloka, namely Atmarama, Munayo, Nigranta, Api, Cha, Ukrama, Kurvanti, Ahoitukam, Bhaktim, Itam, Bhuta, Guno, and Hari. According to Vishwa Prakasha Sanskrit Dictionary, there are 7 synonyms of the word Atmarama, which are as follows: Brahman, the absolute truth; body, mind, endeavor, endurance; intelligence, personal habits, and personal habits. The word Munayo refers to those who are thoughtful, those who are grave and silent, ascetics, the persistent, mendicants, sages, and saints. So we can see one word has so many meanings. Therefore, when the Lord takes the different meanings with the different combinations and permutations, yes, inconceivable number of meanings to the verse. The word Nigranta conveys these ideas. One who is liberated from missions. 2, one who has no connection with scriptural injunctions, i.e., who is freed from the obligations of rules and regulations mentioned in revealed scriptures like ethics, Vedas, philosophy, psychology, and metaphysics. In other words, the fools, the illiterate, the urchins, etc., who have no connections with regulatory principles. 3, a capitalist. And 4, one who is penniless. According to the Shabda Kosha dictionary, the affix ni is used in the sense of certainty, counting, building, and forbiddance. And the word granta is used in the sense of wealth, theses, vocabulary, etc. The word ukrama means the one whose activities are glorious. Krama means step. This word ukrama specifically indicates the Lord's incarnation as Vamana, who covered the whole universe by his immeasurable steps. Lord Vishnu is powerful and his activities are so glorious that he has created the spiritual world by his internal potency and the material world by his external potency. By his all-pervading features, he is everywhere present as the supreme truth, and in his personal feature, he is always present in his transcendental abode of Goloka Vrindavan, where he displays his transcendental pastimes in all variegatedness. His activities cannot be compared to anyone else, and therefore the word Ukrama is just applicable to him only. According to Sanskrit verbal arrangement, Kurvanti refers to doing things for someone else. Therefore, it means that Atmarama renders devotional service unto the Lord, not for personal interest, but for the pleasure of the Lord. Ukrama. Hetu means causal. There are many causes for one's sense gratification, and they can be chiefly classified as material enjoyment, mystic power, and liberation, which are generally desired by progressive persons. As far as material enjoyment are concerned, they are innumerable, and materialists are eager to increase them more and more because they are under the illusory energy. There is no end to the list of material enjoyments, nor can anyone in the material universe have all of them. As far as mystic powers are concerned, there are 8 in number, such as to become the minutest in form, become weightless, to have anything one desires, to lord it over the material nature, to control other living beings, to throw earthly globes in outer space, etc. These mystic powers are mentioned in Bhagavatam. The form of liberation are 5 in number. So Prabhupada was going through a synopsis of that discussion. And here we see a picture after Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya recognized who Sri Mahaprabhu was, that is just not an ordinary sannyasi, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he surrendered, and Sri Mahaprabhu showed him his form, Vaikuntha form, and then he showed him his 6-arm form. The 6-arm form, Sadbhuj form, 2 forms, 2 arms, Lord Ramachandra, 2 arms representing Krishna, and 2 arms representing Lord Chaitanya. This is the Sadbhuj form, also proving that Sri Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Therefore, unalloyed devotion means service to the Lord without desire for the above-mentioned personal benefits. And the powerful personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, can be fully satisfied by such unalloyed devotees, free from all sorts of desire for personal benefit. So the unalloyed devotee, he wants to serve the Lord, and is not interested in any form of material pleasure. He's not interested in any form of mystic perfection. He's not interested in any of forms of liberation. All he wants is simply to satisfy and please Krishna's senses. That's what he wants. That's his desire. And that attitude of service is what attracts the Lord. Unalloyed devotional service of the Lord progresses in different stages. Practice of devotional service in the material field is of 81 different qualities. That means tinged, mixed with the modes. And above such activities is a transcendental practice of devotional service, which is one and is called sadhana bhakti. When unalloyed practice of sadhana bhakti is matured into transcendental love for the Lord, the transcendental loving service of the Lord gradually develops into 9 progressive stages of loving service under the heading of attachment, love, affection, feeling, affinity, adherence, following ecstasy, and intense feeling of separation. So devotional service is not just devotional service. It intensifies and becomes more and more pure and unalloyed as one progresses on this path. The attachment of an inactive devotee develops up to the stage of transcendental love of God. Attachment of a servitor develops up to the stage of adherence. So now, according to the attachment, according to the purity of love, the intensity of the love, and the unalloyed nature of the love, from mixed bhakti to sadhana bhakti to pure raganuga bhakti, as it progresses on that level, at different intensity, the relationship with the Lord is dictated. So for example, at attachment, when one comes to attachment, that means one is attached to serving the Lord. There is shantaras, inactivity, the inactive devotees. When that attachment of active service develops, then it comes to, or that's where one is dasyaras. In dasyaras, there is the stage of adherence. And that for friendly devotees develops up to the stage of following. And the same is also the case of parental devotees. Devotees in conjugal develop the ecstasy up to the stage of intense feeling of separation. These are some of the features of unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. So for different devotees in the different relationships of rasas, there are different intensities of loving exhibition, loving relationships. So when people talk, I love of God, I love God, right? Just like in other traditions, they talk about love of God, but love of God has different levels, intensities, and different relationships. So that is all described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through this Atmarama verse. According to Hari Bhakti Sudoya, the important word itam bhuta is complete bliss. Transcendental bliss is the realization of impersonal Brahman. Transcendental bliss in the realization of impersonal Brahman becomes comparable to a scanty water contained in the pit made by a calf's hoof. It is nothing compared with the ocean of bliss of the version of the personality of Godhead. The personal form of Lord Shri Krishna is so attractive that it comprehends all attraction, all bliss, all tastes, rasas. These attractions are so strong that no one wants to exchange them for material enjoyment, mystic power, and liberation. There is no need of logical arguments in support of the statement, but out of one's own nature, one becomes attracted by the qualities of Lord Shri Krishna. We must know for certain that the qualities of the Lord have nothing to do with mundane qualities. All of them are full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. There are innumerable qualities of the Lord, and one is attracted by one quality while another is attracted by another. So when you compare the bliss that one gets in being Atmarama, Brahman realized, that is inconceivable. It's like comparing the ocean to water contained in the footprint of a calf. Completely insignificant, right? Or like a drop of water compared to the ocean. Totally inconceivable. That is why those who are Atmaramas become attracted. Because ultimately, everyone wants to be attracted by happiness. Happiness is what drives people's decision. What allows you to decide that I want to, embrace this activity or move in this direction? It is the bliss, it is happiness. So we find that if we hear the qualities of Krishna, which is what the Bhagavatam is presenting, we will become attracted to the highest pleasure that exists. Great sages, such as the four bachelor devotees, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanat Kumar, were attracted by the fragrance of flowers and tulsi leaves anointed by the pulp of sandalwood offered at the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Sukadeva Goswami was attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami was already situated in the liberated stage, yet he was attracted by the pastimes of the Lord. This proves that the quality of his pastimes has nothing to do with material affinity. Similarly, the young coward damsels were attracted by the bodily features of the Lord, and Rukmini was attracted by hearing about the glories of the Lord. Lord Krishna attracts even the mind of the goddess of fortune. He attracts in special cases the minds of young girls. He attracts the minds of elderly ladies by parental affection. He attracts the minds of the male in humors of servitude and friendship. So everyone is attracted by Krishna. Therefore, he is called Krishna, all attractive. The word Hari conveys various meanings, but the chief import of the word is that he, the Lord, vanquishes everything inauspicious, everything inauspicious, and takes away the mind of a devotee by awarding him pure transcendental love. By remembering the Lord in acute distress, one can be free from all varieties of miseries and anxieties. Gradually, the Lord vanquishes all obstacles on the path of devotional service of a pure devotee. And the result of the 9 devotional activities, such as hearing and chanting, becomes manifested. By his personal feature, the transcendental attributes, the Lord attracts all psychological activities of a pure devotee. Such is the attractive power of Lord Krishna. The attraction is so powerful that a pure devotee never hankers for any one of the 4 principles of religions, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. That becomes totally insignificant. These are the attractive features of the transcendental attributes of the Lord. And adding to this, the word api and cha can also increase the imports unlimitedly. According to Sanskrit grammar, there are 7 synonyms of the word api. So by interpreting each and every word of the slok, one can see unlimited number of transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna that attract the mind of a pure devotee. So that was the Atmarama verse. That is what attracted Sukadev Goswami, who was Atmarama. It was Krishna's all attractive potency and qualities. Then Sukadev Goswami concludes this section, verse 11. Hare gunap sipta matir Bhagavan badaraya nahi adya gan mahat akyanam nityam Vishnu jana priya. Srila Sukadev Goswami, the son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus, he underwent the study of this great narration, Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada starts off the purport. According to Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Srila Sukadev Goswami was liberated soul even within the womb of his mother. Srila Sukadev Goswami knew that Srila Vyasadeva knew that the child after his birth would not stay at home. Therefore, he, Vyasadeva, impressed upon him the synopsis of the Bhagavatam so that the child could be made attached to the transcendental activities of the Lord. After his birth, the child was still more educated in the subject of Bhagavatam by reciting the actual poems. So we know that Sukadev Goswami left, and it is described, here it's described, Hare, Hari, the personality of Guna, transcendental attributes, Shiptita, been absorbed in Mati, the mind. So Sukadev Goswami was in the forest, completely self-satisfied, staying in the forest, absorbed into Brahman. And Vyasadeva, it is described that he sent his disciples to cut wood in the forest. But he did not just send them into the forest to cut wood. But what he did was, he taught them specific verses and told them to recite these verses while they were cutting and chopping wood. And it is described by the acharyas that the specific verses which the woodcutters, the servants of Vyasadeva, were reciting were verses about Sri Krishna's affection for his devotees, verses about how Sri Krishna dealt with opposition or enemies, and verses about the beauty of Sri Krishna. So there were selected verses that they had memorized, and while chopping wood, they were reciting these verses. And Sukadev Goswami, who was in the forest, heard these verses being recited. And naturally, it attracted his mind. It agitated him. That person who is completely absorbed in Brahman, that's everywhere, that's practically motionless, his heart started moving when he heard these verses glorifying Krishna. It agitated him in a good way. That means he became more attracted, right? Because he was already absorbed. So he could not be attracted by mundane pleasure. But something of a greater nature attracted his mind. And then they came back to the ashram, and Sukadeva Goswami's anchoring and increased. He wanted to hear more. So what happened? He followed them. And he came back to the ashram of Srila Vyasadeva, his father. And in this way, his father then taught him the Bhagavatam. Now, the second category of verses, which were verses about how Krishna dealt with opposition, which means how Krishna dealt with enemies. One of the famous verses that he taught his disciples to recite was this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:23. Aho bakiyam stana kallakuttam jigyam sayad payad apyasadvi lebe gatim dartya chitam tatonyam kamva dayulam sharanam vrajema. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. In this verse, I highlighted very specific qualities of Putana. Jigyam Savya, she was envious. She came to kill Krishna. She was envious. We are in the material world because we envy God. Asadvi, unfaithful. She was totally unfaithful, no faith in God. This is not God, this is a demon, I'll kill him. This is a rascal, a small baby. So, Asadvi, we have no faith. Gatim, what destination did she receive? Datrim Uchitam, just suitable for a nurse. Why? Why did Krishna give her a position of a nurse serving Mother Yashoda to serve Krishna in the spiritual world? Why? Because Datrim, she came to serve him as a nurse. So Krishna gave her a position of a nurse. So Prabhupada in the purport says, part of the purport says, the Lord accepts the least qualification of the living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? In the material world, right, for your boss, you have to give him so much and he awards you the minimum. Krishna, you have to give him little, the least, and even if you're the most unqualified, but he gives you the greatest reward. This is Krishna. So therefore, when Sukadeva Goswami heard these verses of Krishna's magnanimity, Krishna's mercifulness, Krishna's amazing qualities, that he's able to see this insignificant service of Putana and ignore all the ocean of negativity and inauspicious qualities that she had, and make her a devotee. This attracted Sukadeva Goswami. So like that, all the different qualities that are described, that are there in the Bhagavatam describing Krishna, this attracted Sukadeva Goswami. And this is how he became the exponent. He learned the Bhagavatam, all the verses, and shared the Bhagavatam to Sukadeva, to Maharaj Parikshit. And that also, this chapter now is going to come, because now we are introduced to Sukadeva Goswami studying the Bhagavatam. Now we're going to hear what happens. He studied the Bhagavatam. What did he do then? So then the chapter of Maharaj Parikshit is going to come. Prabhupada continues, the idea is that generally liberated souls are attached to the feature of impersonal Brahman, with a monastic view of becoming one with the Supreme Whole. But by the association of pure devotees like Vyasadeva, even liberated souls become attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Lord. By the mercy of Sri Narad, Srila Vyasadeva was able to narrate the great epic of Srimad Bhagavatam. And by the mercy of Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Sukadeva Goswami was able to grasp the import. The transcendental qualities of the Lord are so attractive that Srila Sukadeva Goswami became detached from being completely absorbed in impersonal Brahman and positively took up the personal activity of the Lord. So by the mercy of Narad, Vyasadeva became attracted to Bhagavatam. By the mercy of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami became attracted. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we are becoming attracted. This is the cyclic succession. This is the power of association. Just by associating with the pure devotees in the Bhagavatam, our heart will be attracted to Krishna. It cannot be otherwise. Just like if you go into water, you'll get wet. So if you come into the association of pure devotees hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, your heart will be attracted to the lotus feet of Krishna. It will not help itself. Whether you are sinful, whether you are materialist, whether you are a Jnani, whether you are Karmi, whether you are Yogi, whether you are Atmarama, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you are, where in this line or this list you are, you will be attracted by the wonderful, glorious qualities of Krishna. This is the position of Srimad Bhagavatam. And when you become attracted to Krishna, naturally you will want to begin to serve Krishna. That means you become a devotee. That means you become a Vishnu Jana. And when you become a Vishnu Jana, what happens? Prabhupada writes, practically, he was thrown from the impersonal conception of the absolute, thinking within himself that he had simply wasted so much time in devoting himself to the impersonal feature of the Supreme. And in other words, he realized more transcendental bliss with the personal feature than the impersonal. So Sukadeva Goswami realized, my God, I wasted so much time merging into this Brahman, just, Shanti, 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 and silence. He was wasting time. He realized that. Just like we will also one day realize that we wasted so much time trying to exploit and enjoy the resources of this material world. What a waste of time. All that time I could have spent serving Krishna and relishing Krishna's qualities and service. And from that time, not only did he himself become very dear to the Vishnu Janas, the devotees of the Lord, but also the Vishnu Janas became very dear to him. The devotees of the Lord who do not wish to kill the individuality of the living entities and who desire to become personal servitors of the Lord, do not very much like the impersonalists. And similarly, the impersonalists who desire to become one with the Supreme are unable to evaluate the devotees of the Lord. Thus, from time immemorial, these two transcendental pilgrims have sometimes been competitors. In other words, each of them likes to keep separate from the other because of the ultimate personal, impersonal realizations. Therefore, it appears that Srila Sukadeva Goswami also had no liking for the devotees. But since he himself became a saturated devotee, he desired always the transcendental association of the Vishnu Janas, and the Vishnu Janas also liked his association since he became a personal Bhagavat. Thus, both the son and the father were completely cognizant of transcendental knowledge in Brahman, and afterwards both of them became absorbed in the personal feature of the Supreme Lord. The question as to how Sukadeva Goswami was attracted by the narration of the Bhagavatam is thus completely answered by this sloka. So Srila Vyasadeva became a devotee. He attracted Sukadeva Goswami, who then became a devotee, and they loved each other's company because devotees like to come together and associate and hear about Krishna, glorify Krishna, serve Krishna. This is Vishnu Janas. We love the company of other devotees. Why? Because our focus, our objective is the same, to hear the glories of Krishna and to serve Krishna. The impersonalists, they're not interested in this. So this is how Sukadeva Goswami became attracted to the glorious Bhagavatam. And now we're going to continue to hear what happened after he had absorbed, memorized, and heard the Bhagavatam, and on his travels, what happened. So we will conclude with this section today, hearing about how the all attractive qualities of Krishna attracted the Atmarama, Sukadeva Goswami. Next week, we will cover verses 12 to 16. Vantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions or comments anyone has? Bhafana Prabhu says, love exchange in devotees clearly expounded in Atmarama Sloka. Yes. We see how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really took that verse and expanded that verse in all different ways, coming to the very conclusive point of loving interaction and service between Bhagavan, Bhakta, and that exchange, flow of love is bhakti. This is the perfection. This is what everyone is searching for. This is what everyone is looking for. But the karmis are looking for it in the negative direction, in the wrong direction. The Atmaramas, they're looking for it internally in the self. But really, it's in the direction of Krishna. Therefore, Prabhupada starts off Nectar Devotion. He says, people are all looking for loving reciprocation, but they don't know where to repose that love. When you repose that loving propensity at the lotus feet of Krishna, that is the perfection of life. So it's not about negating love. It's about reposing that love in the right direction at the lotus feet of Krishna. Suresh Makan says, Dandot Pranam Prabhu, thank you very, very much for your elucidation of the most paramount verse, namely Atmarama verse. I did nothing. All I did was share and what Prabhupada says, yes. And if you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that really goes into detail. Can you imagine sitting there for hours and hours and hours? Yeah, so Brahma Bhattacharya was a scholar, so he could appreciate it. He could definitely appreciate one, like, his mind was blown, right? Wow, I never heard that. Second one, I never heard that. Third one, it's like he's dying in ecstasy, one verse after another. This is how the Lord showed him that he is the Supreme Personality of God. Right? For each, for the gopis, Krishna's beauty is he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the coward boys, Krishna's playing games. He's he's everything. So for each devotee, different attributes and characteristics of Krishna purchases them. That yes, this is my worshipful Lord and Master. Shamanan Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, 3:2:23 verse, the purport that really wonderful about Putana and Krishna. Yes. In fact, when we get to the section, we will cover it in more detail. Sukadeva Goswami, it is described that, when he came to this verse, he went into ecstasy, just thinking, about this, because it's inconceivable. People are trying to understand, who should I take shelter of? We're going to be speaking about the Sharanagati from tomorrow, 6 days, for the last 5 days of Kartik. So this topic is going to be coming. Who should I take shelter of? Why should I take shelter of Krishna? Right? Who should I take shelter of? Who's worthy of my shelter? Who's worthy to give me refuge? Sukadeva Goswami is saying there is no one else. There is no one else. It is Krishna. Why? Because consider, he gave shelter to Putana. It's inconceivable. She just looked like a devotee. She was a demoness. She came to kill him. If Krishna could give her shelter, what would Krishna give to those who are sincerely trying to serve him? It's inconceivable. Is there anything to note about the way Lord Chaitanya dealt with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, hearing patiently for 7 days, then speaking and correcting, etc.? Yes. Remember, nothing that the Lord does is for nothing. Everything that the Lord does is for something. There's a deeper meaning. So one is, we can see how the Lord overpowered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Firstly, I'll just share 1 or 2 points. He kept quiet. The fact that he kept quiet was his way to instill doubt even in his own learning. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was thinking, I'm learned, I know everything. I'm a Pandit, I'm a scholar, I'm the scholar in the whole of Bharatvarsh, in the whole of India. People come to me to learn, right? So he had pride, he was proud about his learning. Now, Lord Chaitanya instilled doubt just by him keeping quiet. Right? It's like, you're telling someone, right? And the person is not responding. Now you're wondering, does he understand what I'm saying? Or is there something wrong with what I'm saying? So that's how, he implanted a doubt in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Hold on. My Lord, are you Lord Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, are you understanding what I'm saying? Or is there something wrong with what I'm saying? Which means you started doubting your own knowledge. So that way, the Lord started to break the pride of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And then, when the Lord frankly told him, I understand Vedanta, I don't understand what you're saying. That really shocked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Like, really? Like, how can you, what nerve you have to say that? You see my certificates. You're saying like that. So then, that like really pricked him. And then when Chijima started speaking, that really broke the silence. And that won over Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's heart. So he was sincere. He was sincere, he definitely. So yes, there's the interactions, there's deep meanings to that. And in the CC, Chaitanya, this is revealed. Bhavana Prabhu, can one also safely say the mistake of Sukadeva Goswami is exposed the similar way that Vyasadeva mistake was exposed by Narada? Yeah, so true, and not so much a mistake, because remember, Krishna is using these personalities to reveal our mistakes. These personalities are transcendental, and Krishna is using them to reveal our mistakes. So Sukadeva Goswami was Atmarama. Now, some people will say, well, I just want to, like Nirvana, just merge into Brahman and just be happy and, be silent, right? Just like they say, let's observe silence and just become silent, and that way we can experience the peace. So the perfection of that is Sukadeva Goswami. And if he got attracted, I want to talk about all these other insignificant living entities who are trying their own little way to become silent and merge into Brahman. And, yeah. So that's how Krishna is using these personalities to reveal our folly and our shortcomings and our impurities and our little, inconceivable or in our little understanding of what is the truth. So yes, in different ways, the Lord will do this through. In fact, throughout the Bhagavatam, we're going to be seeing this. The Lord will use his devotees to teach us lessons, just like a mother teaches the daughter-in-law by chastising the daughter because of the relationship. If she chastises the daughter can digest that chastisement. But if she chastises the daughter-in-law will get upset. So indirectly, she's teaching the daughter-in-law. So Krishna is doing that through the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Mother Les says, Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you very, very much for the Krishna Katha. Srimad Bhagavatam is so glorious, unlimitedly glorious. This verse has opened the door for me understanding that it is bottomless. Yeah, it is bottomless. And how little I know and how insignificant I am, but it's enough to inspire an onward journey. Wonderfully said. Yes. It's true with even Bhagavad Gita. It's true with every verse of the Bhagavad Gita. It's even true with Srila Prabhupada's books. Even if you take Chant and Be Happy, such a small book, and you'll think, yeah, such a small book. I read the book. No, you didn't read the book. Please read it again and you'll see. And now you go and read and you, wow, I didn't see it. I didn't read that. I didn't say, oh, that chapter. See, Prabhupada said, oh, how far out, amazing. And guess what? You can read that same book again tomorrow. And it'll be a different book. Prabhupada said his books are like time bombs. Now, this is our initial understanding. Oh, yes, I distribute the book, and the book is there on the shelf. And one day that book will become a time bomb for that soul who got that book, and that it will start his Krishna consciousness. Here's another meaning. That book is like a time bomb. And when is that time bomb going off? At every moment. Just like this verse or the verses of the Bhagavatam, every moment it's giving a different experience. Why? Because it's ever fresh, it's transcendental, it's unlimited, and Krishna is always increasing in every way. This is the unlimited depth of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of Krishna consciousness, of everything that Srila Prabhupada gave us. And that is true with everything. It's true with prasad. It's true with association devotees. It's true with kirtan. It's true with daily service. It's true with serving in devotional service. It's true with association of devotees. In every way, it's true. It's always newer and fresher, and the experience becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. We just have to have the faith and continue, and we'll practically be swimming in Anandam Burdi Vardana. But it has to start somewhere. So yes, bottomless, inconceivable, unlimited experience that Srila Prabhupada is giving us entrance into. What more can we ask for? Namavati Radhika says, absolutely beautiful class. So nice to hear the Atmarama verse. Amazing. Thank you for explaining so nicely. We are so grateful to your grace, Hare Krishna. This is wonderful medicine for our disease. Yes, I'm happy to share whatever little I am hearing and whatever little I can grasp, I can share for my own purification and little service. Mother Achana says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for beautiful explanation of the Atmarama verse. Bafana Prabhu says, it's so nice to also see the two conflicting or differences of the pilgrims. Devotees who do not wish to kill the individuality, and the impersonalists who desire to become one with the Supreme. Yes, and therefore you'll see, when Prabhupada, his pranam mantra is Nirvishesha Sunyavadi. He came to destroy the impersonalists and the voidist. This is an eternal conflict. It's there because for it enhances the personal side when one enters into that dimension. Because Krishna is a person. And yet you'll find a lot of people believe energy. God is impersonal. It's light. It's everywhere. The universe, the source. And on the other hand, Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam. Hari Guna, he has qualities, divine qualities. He relates. He's a person. Right? So it's amazing how these two parties are always there. Jagannath Prabhu, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for today's most transcendental class, relishing all the nectar. Thank you for your association and attendance. Rasesh Prabhu, Hare Krishna, thank you very much, appreciate it. So thank you very much. Oh, there's actually, yes, thank you very much, Bafana Prabhu, for sharing your wonderful realizations and wisdom. It's amazing, you said, it's amazing how both the Son and the Father ultimately found ultimate satisfaction and were cognition of the objective of proper attraction to Lord Shri Krishna. Yes. And this is how Srila Prabhupada built a house in which everyone, the whole world can live. No matter which direction you are like the karmis for sense gratification, you are like the impersonalists, the Brahmavadis want to merge, you want to be like the devotees. When we bring Krishna in the center, then the karmis will be satisfied with sense gratification, inconceivable sense gratification. The Brahmavadis, Atmaramas will be satisfied and be attracted with the qualities of Krishna, and the devotees will be attracted with devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and we all live as Vishnu Janas in this one beautiful house called the Kingdom of God, Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world. Wonderful. So please, if you have time, please join us. From tomorrow, we will be covering this aspect of Sharanagati, surrender, which will also, the more we understand, the more it will help us on this path of surrendering to Srimad Bhagavatam, surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, making our lives perfect and helping perfect others' lives. Thank you very much for everyone's association. We will meet again. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Go Pramanand.